I love Coach Dungy. One of the things that he would always preach was addition by subtraction. Most people think the way to get more is to do more, but actually the way to get more is to do less and really focus on what you're good at and what your strengths are.
Welcome back to Innovate or Evaporate. I'm your host, Tooh Day, and I am so excited to share the stage today with Gary Brackett. Gary, we've known each other for maybe a decade.
Yeah, long time.
Something like that. We've done some interviews together.
Yes.
Before, and your story, I love it. It fascinates me, and a couple highlights that I think about: undrafted into the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Super Bowl champion in 2007. And I just can't imagine the blood, sweat, and tears right along that journey. So I can't wait to dive into that a little bit today.
Yeah.
Like, personal innovation, sports tech innovation, and then your transition post-football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, entrepreneur, starting multiple businesses, and all the things you do today. But I want to kick off with one story.
Okay.
So Mickey's Camp,
Yeah.
right? So for those listeners out there and the folks viewing, Mickey Maurer started a camp called Mickey's Camp years ago, probably 3 decades ago, roughly. And he invites a lot of various leaders, and there's a men's Mickey's Camp and a women's Mickey's Camp. And people go off for 2-3 days and do a bunch of activities together, get to know each other better, and it just makes the world a better place.
Yeah.
But I remember the year before last, I arrive at Mickey's Camp, and I'm walking up that driveway, and you are talking with, there's probably several dozen folks, and there was a parent in the crowd that asked you, she said, Gary, like, your success is amazing, but my son is in high school and plays football, and he thinks he's going to make it to the NFL, and he doesn't have a chance, but he doesn't know that. And so what advice do you have for me as a parent to, level set for my child that they're not going to make it to NFL?
Yeah.
And I just got chills. Your response was, you don't do that.
Right.
You tell them to go for it, right? And you go for your dreams. And for those who are just listening on audio, I'm raising my hand real high. But if your dreams are up here to go to the NFL,
Right,
and you end anywhere in here, you still have an awesome life or an awesome journey. And so talk about that for a minute. That hit me really hard. I love that response.
It's funny. I think people have this adverse relationship with failure. And somewhere along the way, we've been taught that like failure is the opposite of success.
Yep.
And as parents, the helicopter parents, they try to do whatever they can to prevent their child from failing. Because they feel like they failed.
That's right.
Right? So like, I don't want you to do it, because if you fail, it's like I failed, and I don't want to be a failure.
Yeah.
So what I've learned is like, failure is not the opposite of success. It's actually on the way to success. So it's a stepping stone to success. And by going after your dreams, by going after your aspirations, the person you need to become is far greater than the destination you arrive at.
Yep.
So even if that person does everything they can, they wake up early, they work out, they eat the right food, they study, and for some reason they don't make it, they're a better person having had a dream and having chased it.
That's right.
And I'd rather hire that person than someone who didn't have any dreams and, just lived in that comfort zone with their whole lives.
What do you do throughout your life to like manifest that self, in interactions? Like, how do we get society to, like, there's so many naysayers out there, right? That want to pull people back, pull things down. How do we overcome that and proliferate this idea that failure is not the opposite of success? I love that. It is one step closer to success, whatever that is. Which success is not just money either, right?
Yeah, no, you could define success in a lot of different ways. I define the success not by my bank account, but by my schedule.
Yep.
Me being able to be there for my kids at their games, at their events, win, lose, or draw. So that's kind of how I define it. I think one of the big things that people need to do is really like kill their ego. I think your ego tells you that everyone cares and everyone is watching you, and you can't make one false step, or you can't stutter when you speak, or you can't, like, all these things, we're just so critical of ourselves. In fact, I say often that if we talk to our friends like we talk to ourselves, we won't have any friends. Right? No one will hang with us if we were that negative.
Right.
So I think, dying to your ego and understanding, everyone is just trying to figure it out.
It reminds me of that book, Good to Great. And he went through, did all this, studying all these most successful, like what makes a company the most successful. And one that sticks out in my mind is I can't remember the years that he studied those companies, but Tractor Supply was one of the most successful. I think it was like number 2 most successful public company of all time at the time period he looked at. And he got done with all the data, all the studies, etc., interviews, and he came down to the only thing he could think of that made those companies more successful was the leadership was not arrogant. They didn't have an ego. They were willing to give the credit to others.
Yeah, because even how it shows up on a job is when someone's a manager or a leader, you know, they tell people to do things and they want it done a certain way. They want it done the way that they would do it.
Right.
Right. And for me as a leader, my mindset has always been like, hey, I'm stubborn about my goals and flexible about my methods. Like, there's better ways to build mousetraps. We're in the innovation capital of the world.
That's right. You know, right there.
If innovation didn't exist, like, what are we doing here?
That's right.
Right. So there's always gonna be a better way, more efficient way, whatever. So I think we just have to build that in, build failure into your business plan.
Yeah.
And your ego will be much better off for, you know, not being so hard on yourself and saying like, hey, I'm not gonna get all of them. Right. But that's okay. Right. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. I'm learning. And I think that approach really will help people, you know, not be so hard on themselves and not think, you know, if their company fails or something happens to them, that God forbid they should leave the house, right?
Right.
That they're gonna get stoned when they're walking down the street, right? Like, no one cares.
Yeah, that's right. So now you're making me think of a couple of words like grit and perseverance. So you are a very, I follow you on Facebook, and I think we're friends on Facebook as well. So I watch your stuff constantly.
Right.
And I talk to my son. I show him your posts, and it's always very upbeat, right? Just always gonna be, you know, taking that next step, powering through, you know, adversity. Where does that come from for you? You know, did you have mentors growing up? Do you think it's in your DNA?
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
It's funny, growing up, I didn't have a lot of like positive role models of people showing me what to do. I had more people showing me what not to do.
Interesting.
And I knew what I didn't want to do. And that's the first thing. Like, a lot of times you meet people, you talk to them, like, I don't know what to do. Like, first identify what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
What you don't like.
Yeah.
Right? I know I didn't like being broke. I know I didn't like someone telling me what to do and what time to get up and asking for vacation. Like, I knew just certain things I didn't want my life to. So I had to go do the opposite thing and chase what I didn't know. And I think, you know, that mentality, in the beginning, it was like I wanted to prove other people wrong. Like, to rub it in their face.
I could do this.
Like, I told you so.
Yeah.
But then after a while, like, again, back to the ego, right? It's like, what are you doing? So now it's less about them and more about me. It's more about proving me right.
That's interesting.
And making commitments to myself and keeping those commitments to myself, which momentum, right? Momentum is a will. It's like, you want momentum, you just go, when I get some momentum, I'm gonna get a start. That's not how it works. You make goals, you do a goal, you build momentum, you do another goal, momentum continues, you do another goal, and it's this constant loop, right? So you can, if you want momentum, have a checklist and go out and mark up everything on our checklist that day.
So it's like the old term, baby steps.
Right.
Like, if you do a bunch of small things, great things happen.
Yeah.
Right. There's some pictures out there that show like a ladder, you know, leaning up against a cliff, and the rungs of one of the ladders are like, you know, 6 feet apart, and then the other rungs are 12 inches apart. And it's like the easiest way to get up the ladder is a bunch of small steps to get to the next point.
But I think the problem is with social media or some of these things, people want to start at someone else's peak.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't know the backstory. They tell the headline.
I don't understand. And even that, they don't know the current story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I've been at conferences and you look at people and from the outside looking in, like, man, they got it all.
Yeah.
But if we were to all be transparent and all of our problems, like in the middle of the room, you will fight to get yours back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So just like, again, run your own race, be confident with who you are, have your own journey, celebrate, clap for others' success, right? But this is your life.
That's a great point. There's a group out there called Entrepreneurs Organization, and you get in these forums and you meet once a month.
Right.
And so you know, it's all peers. And so that one, it's all CEOs that have $1 million or more in revenue. And I like to say, like, you talk about all the things you don't talk about at cocktail parties.
Yeah.
You ask an entrepreneur at a cocktail party, how's your business going?
Oh, great.
It's amazing. I can barely hang on. That night they're in the fetal position. Are we gonna make payroll next week, right? And so I think you're exactly right. Like, people, yeah. It makes me think, like find your group. So whatever you're doing, if you find people in different parts of the ecosystem or life that are trying to do something, whatever that is. It could be a group of CEOs or a group of product leaders, or it doesn't even have to be all the same types of leaders. It could be different types. But like, if you forge a group of a half a dozen or a dozen people that you can talk with on another level,
Right.
you quickly find out that we all have things going on in our lives, right? Personal, family, professional.
So for me, my group of circles isn't based on finances, where you live, or houses. It's based on like a common set of values.
Yeah.
Like, we have a common set of values, right? And my values are innovative, solution focused, fun, system oriented.
Yeah.
Right. So when I meet people like that, I immediately click. I'm immediately aligned with people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where we're from or anything like that. Like, our values, like what I hold dear, what I make every decision based off, aligns with you. So we got a lot of stuff that we could talk about.
I love it. All right, so you just came off the stage. We're in Indianapolis right now, and you just came off the stage at Sports Tech HQ. It's hosting an event here during the NFL Combine, talking about sports tech. So let's talk a little bit about, and you and Glenn talked a little bit about technology and sports. And so from your perspective, what have you seen from a sports tech standpoint when you were playing versus, if you interact and talk with players or coaches or owners today? What are you seeing the shift in, like, technology and innovation in things around sports? You mentioned the ticket experience, for example.
Like, I spent years of my life with paper tickets in my hand trying to get this ticket to that person right outside. They're just like, I had to hand it to someone. They had to hand it to someone. But one of the big things I see now, and you see it starting earlier on with college, and with the NIL, the name, image, and likeness deals.
Yep.
And I think more than ever, people are branding themselves, and people, care about impressions and the image that they portray online.
Yeah.
And then, that goodwill can then be cashed in, right, with a company, with leveraging ideal, with me now telling my friends and my influencers, if you will, to, like, generate a product. I mean, if you look at the list of billionaires and you look at some of the younger billionaires, it's all based on trading impressions and trading engagement, right? So you see a huge that. So you talk about algorithms, you talking about, video setups, you talk about lighting, you talking about, this podcast and this conversation being recorded, being cut down, being clipped up.
Sound bites, right?
So all those things are just like, before me and you, I started podcasting because I feel guilty having conversations with people like yourself and my friends not being there.
Yeah, and not get it out there, and everybody's sharing. And
I'm like, everyone should hear from you.
Right, yeah.
And I think that sort of thing is what you're seeing in the technology world. And then when you look at it from a performance standpoint, in terms of being bigger, faster, stronger, just the amount that, they're have heart rates on your body and taxing, like, how red or green you are and how much you should practice or not practice based on your likelihood of injury.
That's interesting, right? Yeah, if you're just like a car, if it's a red line, that's not a good place to hang out.
Hey, let's give him less reps.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of those things are just interesting now, but and even, before, it was like, you create a product or a service, you were thinking about your 5-10 mile radius. How can people downtown, like, purchase what I'm offering?
Yep.
But now the first thing you're thinking of, like, how does it scale globally?
The distribution, right? How do I leverage that distribution?
So all those things now, just how we even create and think about deals, is no longer just because of how fast you gotta get it out there, how quick the market you gotta be, and how quickly you gotta get to scale. You could dream bigger because the payoff is there.
Yeah. What do you think about NIL? this whole, I mean, we went from, or you get a scholarship or not, and then to kind of the Wild West of NIL. What do you think happens? Where does this plane land eventually? Does it stay this Wild West and the portal and people popping around every single year? Is that, you think it's good for the sport? Not
Nah,
good for the
it
sport?
can't. I mean, when you have both NIL and sports betting are at all-time highs, like something's gonna give, right? That's a recipe for disaster,
Something's gonna go wrong.
right? So I think what's gonna happen, just to create some parity as well, I think there's gonna have to be some type of salary cap given to leagues. They got to join some type of collective, and each team gets a certain amount based on a certain criteria.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, I was before somewhere, I think in the soccer league, is it's like, all right, cool. If you're a small school and you recruit a kid, you developing, and then second year he hits the portal and goes somewhere else, you should get something for that.
Yeah.
Right? You should get a development fee for someone taking the rights of somebody that you, right? So then I think that more schools will be more incentivized of developing kids because of their leave, right? They're getting some type of financial stipend, or they're getting something else. So there's gonna have to be some smart people getting together and trying to because at the end of the day, the NIL is really good for like 5% of the people.
5% of the
players,
the
top
schools,
earners,
or the
just the top earners, right? But there's a lot of people that aren't getting any NIL, right? There's people that are outperforming the top 5 that's not getting it. And then on your team,
that's true. Yeah.
it doesn't feel good that your quarterback is making $5 million, the head coach is making 1.5,
Right.
the linemen are making $20K.
Yeah.
And this quarterback is on a commercial,
so he can air it out.
right? I mean, so something has to give in terms of, just equaling things out. I'm all for open market and we're doing some things, but I just think like there could be some more transparency involved in the process.
Yeah.
And just a way that we could kind of even the playing field where, you just don't got billionaires writing a check to a school and all of a sudden.
I was just gonna say that, like what I thought about a few weeks ago or a couple months ago when with the Michigan quarterback situation.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, is this just gonna turn into the battle of the billionaires? So hopefully you had alumni that are billionaires now and they can just stroke, checks for 4-year commitments, to get whoever they want. Like that changes the
reaction.
whole spirit.
I think a year or two ago, a team was out of scholarships, but a kid hit the portal, and then they were able to get him on their team. Like, how? They're out of scholarships. Well, they just paid him enough NIL, so he could pay his tuition, and still have money left over. Well, now the NCAA said, okay, cool. There's an infinite amount of scholarships. That's capped the number of players now that's on each team. So now walk-on players, I was a walk-on in college. Now teams have to cut walk-ons and limit their roster because of this exception.
Interesting. Yeah.
So now like players as a result are getting hurt because of some of the things that are occurring. And again, I just think, we just have to be some understanding of this is the parameters, and this is how everyone's gonna operate for the next 10, 20 years, not until the next court case and then everything is, blown up and it has to get restarted again.
That's too funny. So, all right. So you go through your professional football career, like a lot of self-accountability in your life, right? Or self-responsibility. Like, I'm going to prove people wrong. And now life after football.
Right.
So when did you start preparing and thinking about life after football and like talk about some of you got into business, you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I was, the NFL stands for not for long. So in my mind, it was like, hey, my initial goal was like, I want to make $1 million. Like, I thought $1 million was a lot of money. Then you realize, maybe go pretty quick.
It goes fast.
Right? And not to say it's still a lot of money. But then after a while, I'm playing for the love of the game, just because I love the game and just wherever it goes. And then I'm playing like, hey, I'm making good money. I'm going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off. And then I start having kids and family, and I'm like, yo, it's not fair to them that the wheels fall off and I can't walk around and train my kids because I left it all on the field. So like the different things that my mind went through, and then even leaving the game.
How long were you in the NFL?
9 years.
9 years.
Mm-hmm. So I left, went back to school, got my MBA from George Washington University, was invested in real estate, speaking, got heavily invested in the restaurant industry, and learned a lot of valuable lessons from a steakhouse, from Southern cuisine. our sports bar at our peak had 10 restaurants, 400 employees. We sold 7 franchisees. So we were well on our way to 25, 35, 50 stores.
Yep.
COVID came. No one could kind of predicted that.
Yeah.
Right.
It was tough.
I'm leveraged like crazy.
Yeah.
Right. I can't sell things fast enough to pay 400 people. So unfortunately, I had to like kind of jump on a grenade. And I think for me, that was beginning of dying to my ego. That was beginning of making tough decisions that weren't always popular.
Yep.
But for me, it was just like, hey, I have to, one, take onus, take self-accountability of some of these decisions, trying to protect as many people as possible. But, I had to reset.
Yeah. So you made the decision, we're going to reset, right? Move to something different. What was that transition like? Who'd you pull into your inner circle to think through that and
Yeah,
work through that?
I think the problem is I didn't pull. It was like COVID. So in addition to
Everybody had retreated to their cocoons.
all right. So in addition to we weren't being outside, so we weren't seeing people. I had also went through personal struggles. Me and my wife broke up, so I got shut down the businesses, had to file bankruptcy, and then went through divorce within like a 12-month period from like 2000 to 2001. So it was some deep, dark, lonely, nights, right? And for me, I would always wake up in the morning and I would put my hand on my chest and I hear my heart beating. And like, what are you complaining about? You got a chance. Like, get up. Right. And then every morning it was the same thing. You feel bad for yourself. Oh my God, I can't believe. And it was like, you got a chance. So for me, it was just keep on telling myself, right? It's just like in football. As long as there's time left on the clock, you got a chance. And the same thing with our lives. So for me, it was just a lot of like self-reflection, opened up closets that I shut, I didn't want to revisit, facing monsters that I ran from for forever. And when you run from monsters, they just get bigger and bigger, right? So we're just like standing up, fighting, and really establishing my principles, my values, being a business coach, right? Learning about, or being more intentional about my investments, where I spend my time, my opportunity costs, only dealing in businesses with high margins, right? Because if you high margins, you can mess up. Yeah, right? You make a
little wiggle room.
Then you make it 70%, you're still pretty good.
Right.
If you're in a 10% margin business,
It's tough real quick.
right. So just like, so now really we're evaluating my time, where I spend it, how I share it, and then even reprioritizing my time. Again, I said earlier, I manage my success based on my calendar and not my bank account. So I make decisions that's not always in the best interest of my bank account, right? But it's in the best interest of my fulfillment.
But good for the long term.
Right. Good for my kids,
Right.
and being there. So it's just like how short life is, you still have time. And the idea of like trying to have everything now, do everything now, right, would always just get me into trouble. So now, right, having more patience, being more diligent. I love this quote. I seek my happiness by eliminating my desires rather than satisfying them.
I seek my happiness
by eliminating my desires rather than satisfying them.
Interesting. I like that.
So at one point, like, I couldn't satisfy my desires. Like, I couldn't buy the newest car, the newest sneakers, the newest outfit. Like, that's an unquenchable thirst when you're chasing that, right? And then when I was like, what if I simplify some things? First with my desires. Then everything else just gets a lot simpler, because now you're no longer chasing, you're aligning to things, and you're more present, as opposed to always having like FOMO and having this mentality like I'm missing out, or you're in your boat and you're like, oh, I got a bigger boat. I want to buy a big boat. No, you got a boat. You're out in the lake, bro. You have a great time. I don't have a boat. I want a boat. I'm like, what are you doing? So it's just like, so those things really just made me.
Well, they say that you should be friends with people who have boats.
That's the best thing, right? I don't have a boat anymore, but I'm just saying, just the analogy of just always just like your desire just never been unquenched. So I think that kind of level set, and it kind of like helps me now from a leader's perspective, understanding people and where they're at with their journey. Because then it's like the paradigm shift. I think in the book Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, it was like this picture of an old lady and a young lady. You saw this
I
picture
have
before?
not seen that picture.
No, in this picture, it's a picture of an old lady and a young lady. But if you look at the picture, like if you look at it one way, you'll only see the old lady. But you gotta look at it a different sort of way, and then you'll see the young lady.
Same lady.
Right. Same picture.
Yeah.
And then life is like the same paradigm shift. You view life out of a certain lens, thinking you want it in a certain type of way. But it's not until you see the other way, like, you mean to tell me like something else exists?
Right.
And
That's interesting.
so I think just the growth mindset of understanding that, and now just always looking at the picture and staring at it, just figuring out like, what do I really want out of this?
So you were just talking on stage a moment ago about opportunities come and go, and where you are in your journey. Like, it's okay to let those opportunities pass.
Yeah.
And because there's another opportunity is going to come along.
Right.
Are you still doing business coaching today?
I am.
When you interact with, and are those all different types of business coaching?
So now
Is
I
it
mentioned down in real estate. I was like, I got EOS implementation, so I was doing more
Yep,
EOS,
yep.
then just regular business coaching. But now I do more real estate investment, and just work helping realtors find off market properties, kind of invest in yourself.
Yep.
Where there's riches and niches.
Yeah, so right.
So now I'm just saying niching everything down.
So when you were doing that,
Yeah.
because you were doing that not too long ago.
Yeah. And I still do it, but just what I'm
Not as formally. Yeah. So what are some of the common themes that as humans, right? Like, what are some of the common themes of like the biggest fears or the biggest obstacles that were in people's way, that wasn't letting them to execute whatever strategy they were trying to execute against, or get the right team around them, or maybe even personal, right?
Yeah.
Family and personal and business relationships. Like, what were some of those biggest, the common themes that you saw that we as humans, like, just continually face the same demons, et cetera?
I tell people all the time, even when I speak, I'm like, you can't be a 4, 5, 6 as a leader and with a 7, 8, 9 as a team. So it all starts with you.
Yep.
Like the speed of the leaders are going to determine the rate of the pack.
Yep.
You can't demand from others what you're not willing to put in yourself.
Yeah.
And so many times people forget like what got you there is not going to get you there. And they stop working. They stop, exercising their brain. They stop going to conferences. They stop doing the little things, and then, death by 1,000 inches, death by 1,000 cuts rather.
Right.
And I think it's hard to tell people when you're bringing them in for a culture program, everyone wants to grow their revenue, right? But I would tell people like, look, man, if I market your business before you have a foundation, I'm just going to tell people faster how bad you are. Right.
Yeah.
So we got to set a foundation first. And then in addition to that, people think like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. Like I'm good. Like, are you really good? Right. And most people's have lack of self-confidence, and, their commitment to themselves isn't as strong as you would think it would be with people making 6 and 7 figures a year.
Yep.
And I think first is like quieting the noise in your head, having a personal journey and a mission that you're on, and just being unbothered by so many other things, not chasing shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
Right. Being dedicated to keeping the main thing. So it's like, I love Coach Dungy. One of the things that he would always preach was addition by subtraction.
Yep.
And most people think the way to get more is to do more, but actually the way to get more is to do less and really focus on what you're good at and what your strengths are.
There's a quote I heard that is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And like, it's so true.
Yeah.
So now the word vulnerability pops into my mind, right? So when you're talking with these folks, last year at Rally, the kind of kickoff speech was around vulnerability, which doesn't mean vulnerability doesn't mean weak, right? To me, it's like just being real and being objective and then being honest, right? What tips? What comes to mind when you think about how to make yourself vulnerable, so that you can be honest with whatever your own personal situation is, right? when you're talking with people, like what recommendations do you have? How do you get vulnerable with yourself and get vulnerable with others?
Yeah, again, what I said in the beginning, changing your relationship with failure. And early on, I struggled with like, yo, how much should I show on Instagram? Right? Is this just a highlight reel, or I'm gonna like be real and show some things, right? And a lot of times, I'm putting out motivational messages for me. Like I'm talking to myself. Right? You just happen to be in the room, or I just record it just so I can share it with you, right? But I'm talking to me. So one time, early on, I was one of those guys that would post, check my post, like, dang, no man, like check it again, right?
Get a shot of dopamine.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, like, dang, ain't nobody watching this? Like, so it got to a point. This was very early on. I mean, 10 years ago, probably. And I just, man, this posting things or whatever. It's a vanity metric. Like, I got stuff to do. So I ain't posted for a while. And we're at that NFL alumni event, never forget it. And Terre Haute, Indiana, we're on the field, and a former player was staring at me. I'm like, what is he looking at? Like I didn't play with this dude. Like, so he hit me. He was like, you don't even know, do you? And I was like, all right, he want me to answer a riddle. I don't know what you're talking about, right? He was just like, yo, he was like, so we stepped back, right? And he was like, you saved my life. And he's tearing up. I'm just like, what happened? Like, you'll make me tear up. Like, you bet on our game? Like that I had to pick. Like, what's going on? He was like, nah, man. He's like, one day I was having a tough go at it. And that morning, I told myself I was going to kill myself. I wrote the letter. And I had the gun loaded. And the last thing I did was I went on social media to like send a message, and I saw your quote. And the quote was, you don't get help because you're weak, you get help because you want to remain strong. So the reason I'm so vulnerable and transparent is because I know through my vulnerability, I'm helping others. So it's not about me, right? I don't, there's nothing anyone can do to me, to say to me that I haven't said to myself, that I haven't conquered, that I haven't overcame. I'm never gonna let someone's perception of me become my reality, right? I work too hard on that.
Yeah.
So for me, vulnerability is just, again, like dying to your ego and just think of like my goal, my mission in life is help people see the championship version of themselves. Well, I can't do that if I hide some of my failures. Right? I got to show people that I can overcome, that I could push through, that my life isn't perfect, that, I had my fair share of heartbreaks and disappointments and adversity, a lot of times created by yours truly, self-inflicted. But, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And I think, one of my greatest gifts in life is just like not giving up and keep pushing forward. And also I add to that, not letting the world make you cold. Because you've probably been in relationships before and business opportunities and rooms where, when you left, they were talking about you, or someone didn't do what they said they were going to do, or something else happened. And you can have the mindset, right? This is how the mind plays tricks on you, like, hey, you don't need anyone. Like, you do it all by yourself. And the truth is, you can't, and you shouldn't. And so for me, like, I'm still vulnerable, I'm still out there. I build failure into my business plan. I know every agreement that I sign is not going to go perfectly.
Yeah.
And one of the best things of advice I heard, it was from Chip. Chip owns Maori. I forget what his name is, his last name. But someone, big old house I had, right? And the electric company, had some audio visual. Like, I had control for $200,000 worth of equipment house. And they put some ground wire on the floor, which was shorting out all my equipment. Like DVD players, like this is the old school DVD players, right? With like 200 in the clip that you press the button and to go to it, right? It was shorting out and shorting out. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, is the equipment? So his company came out and realized that for the HVAC, they put the wrong wire on the ground. And that ground was getting into like the electrical outlets, and was shorting out all my stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, you're the best company ever, man. He was just like, he stopped me. He was like, hey man, like I'm glad I was there to help you, but I'm gonna let you know throughout our relationship, there's gonna be a point in time where we're probably gonna make a mistake. And my word to you is that when we do, that I'm gonna make it right.
I wish more people would think that way. Right? We all make mistakes.
That's so good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just make it right.
Like, it's sometimes like, we don't even know. Like I offended you. I said something. It's like if someone's, oh, you know what? Yeah, and I was like, man, that's one of the best things that like someone ever said to me in the type of business. Like, man, that's so true.
You know, when somebody just owns their mistake,
Oh.
just owns up to it. If I own up to my mistake to you, what are you going to do? You going to beat me over the head with a baseball bat? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, right? Said it.
Oftentimes, my thing is just like, there's accountability that can be had on both parts, but I can see my errors and what led you to where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna own that. And it's just like, because oftentimes people want to shift blame 100% on you.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of things you could have done as well now.
Right.
But I'm willing to, just stand up and take my share of the responsibility.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, Gary, we've reached the moment in the podcast where we're going to ask some rapid fire questions.
Well,
And so you can say pass or one word answer or longer answer, however you feel. All right, so here we go. Are we ready? We're feeling nimble?
yes. Let's go.
All right. So what is one thing in your industry? Now you can think about the restaurant industry or the professional sports or real estate. No. So what is one thing in your industry that you think people should stop doing?
I think in regards of real estate, people should stop trying to time the market.
That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
The interest rate's supposed to be dropping for the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, if you want to buy a home, make a decision, you'd have been up $100,000 equity.
Right.
Stop trying to time the market.
That's a great one. I love it. What is one thing that you think leads to the best ability to disrupt or innovate?
I think figuring out like what ideal or innovation is gonna help the most amount of people. Like if you're just trying to make money, you're trying to help yourself or just pad, the stock options. I think it was a study, right, about like back in before the economics was like companies sole purpose is shareholder revenue.
It's shareholder value. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was like the people who invested in the company, our sole purpose is to make them more money.
Yep.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
Like your sole purpose is to make the people, the customers, happy, right? And as a byproduct of that,
That's right.
you're gonna make money.
I think it's so interesting you brought that up. So I was in a conversation once, this is maybe a decade ago. And someone even said, I think the most important thing is you making the team happy.
Yeah.
Their thought was, if we make the team happy, that'll make the customers happy,
Right.
and that'll create the shareholder value.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
It's a triad, I guess.
Yeah.
If you could solve one problem in the world right now with innovation that could transform our lives, what would it be? Wave a magic wand.
Yeah. One thing with innovation, I think it would be like education. And everyone says YouTube, there's a lot of information on there, but it's not like congruent. And I think there's a lot of talented people are getting left behind just because they didn't have the information to solve the world's biggest problems.
Yeah.
And I think through innovation, I think we could do more academically for the underprivileged, the underserved, or whatever, and give them better opportunities to kind of be involved in our economy.
I love it. All right, last rapid fire, last one. What is one thing that you are passionate about that we haven't covered today?
My kids.
I love it.
Yeah. So Gabriel's a sophomore. Gary Jr. is a 7th grader. He's a little tank. And then Jordan is in 5th grade. going through everything I've been through, a lot of times I beat myself up because y- initially it was all about legacy, right? And then I listened to a podcast and it was like, do you remember your great grandfather?
I don't.
Right? So this ideal that we're gonna be remembered in 50 or 100 years is like a fallacy. Like we probably won't be,
It's so interesting. Yeah. Right.
right? So like all that really matters is here and now. And when I learned that my perception switched from is more important what I leave for my kids um than what I leave in them. And showing them how to deal with adversity. Show them how to deal with ups and downs with class, with dignity. Showing them how to have fun, how to make them, not to take themselves so serious. How to like kill their ego and not even establish when they're our age, so they're always even kill and they're never ashamed, upset,
Yeah.
or like get into this whole depression stage because it's like, man, I'm just having fun anyway. And I think that's my biggest thing. Like when people compliment me, people said, if you want to know what you look like, look in the mirror. If you want to know who you are, like look at your kids. And people compliment me on my kids' behavior. I mean, they're all, straight A students, solid athletes, but more importantly, they are great humans.
Yeah.
And man, that's like the biggest gift that I can give, right? Just making them great human beings.
That is awesome. The phrase, like, you never knew you could love so deep, right? And when that first child comes along,
Yeah.
and it's just a whole nother level.
Nah, no question.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, now I gotta get myself. You're getting me all emotional. That was amazing, Gary. I mean, thanks for going deep. I feel like we got vulnerable here in this discussion,
Yeah.
and I think those things are so powerful. So thank you for coming on Innovator Evaporate, and for all the listeners out there, thank you for listening. And this is an incredible 30 minutes or so with you, Gary, and I can't wait to spend our next 30 minutes together sometime soon.
All right, sounds good.
I will see you soon.
All right, thank you.